Hello, my name's Hazel and I'm 23 years old. I just lost the one most important person in my life, and my sister made everything worse for me by trying to throw me out of my own home. Today, I want to tell you about how I worked around it and put my entitled sister in her place. Let me start by telling you a little about my family. My dad, Ralph, was a single father for as long as I can remember. My mom died a few short months after I was born because of some complications after birth. My dad had been my best friend and the only person I was closest to. I have an older sister, Kayla, too. Kayla and I never really got along. Kayla became very hard to handle after my mom passed away. She became a rebel and rarely ever thought of anyone but herself. My dad used to let her off the hook solely because he felt guilty that she didn't have her mother by her side. While I understood that losing a parent that you grew up with for 5 years can be heartbreaking and brain-altering, I still didn't think it justified her treating me like I was trash growing up. I guess somewhere in her heart, she blamed me for the loss of our mother. It was a guilt that ate me up every time, which is why I let Kayla get away with all the mean things she did to me as well. Dad put her in therapy when he found out that Kayla was bullying me. But Kayla refused to go to therapy after a few sessions, and that was the end of it. Eventually, Kayla had to go off to college, and when she left, she never looked back at us. In a way, it was a relief for me. I never had to deal with Kayla and her bullying. Dad and I only got closer because of how much time we got to spend. Kayla would call us sometimes, but it was only to ask Dad for money. Before Dad could even pass the phone to me, she would hang up. That was pretty much the extent of our relationship by that point. Kayla was only there so she could get money from Dad. I found out through social media that the reason she needed so much money was because she was always out partying. Because of all the partying, Kayla ended up not being able to attend her classes. She was then forced to stay back a year and redo it. I don't know how she managed to graduate college, but I'm sure Dad had a stern talking to her about it, and I know it involved him cutting her off financially. Kayla barely ever called after that. Anyway, I also moved out to go to college, and while I missed Dad a lot, I still had a great time at college. Then, during my final year, I got a call from Dad. Now, don't get me wrong, I called my dad every single day, but only at night when both of us were done with our days. This call from Dad happened in the middle of the day, and I immediately knew something was wrong. Dad asked me to meet him that day because he needed to tell Kayla and me something. I dropped everything that I was doing and rushed over to Dad's place. I couldn't get my heart to stop racing, but I tried to remain calm for Dad's sake. I texted Kayla to see if she was on her way too, but she told me that she had better things to do than meet Dad, so she was partying. I rolled my eyes at her and tried my best to get all the bad thoughts about Dad's request to meet so urgently out of my head. When Dad opened the door, he looked tired. I greeted him with a hug and stepped into the house. "Hey, Dad." "Hi, sweetie. How you doing?" "Well, college is tough, but that's what I signed up for, so I'm just getting through it. What about you? How are you? Why the sudden call to come here?" "I have some news to share with you too. Speaking of which, where's your sister?" "I texted her when I got here, and she told me that she can't come because she's at a party right now." "Oh, she didn't think that it was kind of alarming that you called us out of the blue and insisted on us coming over?" "It's okay then. You could pass the message on to her." "Tell me, please. I know I look calm on the outside, but on the inside, I'm freaking out." "Okay. I've been having these pains in my abdomen for a long while now, but I never got it checked out because I just thought that it was gas or something." "Uh-huh. Well, a few days ago, the pain got really bad, so I drove myself down to the hospital, and I got myself admitted there. They ran a lot of tests on me, and finally what? They found a tumor on my pancreas. What? But it's not that bad. A simple surgery could take it out, and after some time for recovery, you'll be fine. Well, the surgery will be happening anyway, but they ran some tests on the tumor, and well, it's cancer. What? Please tell me you're joking. Sweetie, I would never joke about something like this. Have they mentioned what stage you're at? I'm already at stage 3. They can prolong my life just a little more, but there's not much hope for me. That can't be! Oh my God! Look, I know this is hard for you to take in, but I want you to know that you and your sister are the best things that have ever happened to me. You guys have made my life complete, and seeing you two blossom into wonderful women has been a pleasure. I don't know if that's true about Kayla, but sure. Sweetie, be nice. I know you're hurting on the inside, but we'll get through this, okay? Yeah, I'll move in here, and I'll commute to college. What? No, there's no need for that. Dad, you're going to need someone to take care of you, so let me do that. You don't have to spend your prime years at college taking care of me. Dad, I only have 1 semester left, and I'm not losing anything by taking care of you. I want to be able to spend as much time as I can with you, okay? I'm not taking no for an answer. All right. Thank you so much, sweetie. I kept a smile on my face while I was with Dad that day, but I broke down hard when I got back to my dorm. I couldn't imagine my life without Dad. I texted Kayla about what Dad told me, and she never responded to me. I didn't pay much attention to that anyway because I had to move all my things back into Dad's place. The next few months were rough. Dad's health rapidly deteriorated. Dad opted to get chemotherapy just in case there was a chance of getting rid of the cancer. I did my best to balance taking care of Dad and studying for college. I somehow managed to get through college, and let me tell you, my dad was the proudest dad I have ever seen at my graduation. Kayla barely ever visited. She would only ever come over to ask Dad for money. She never asked him how he was doing or if he needed any help. Whenever she came over too, she only stayed for 15 minutes at best before hurrying off to some party. I confronted her about her trashy behavior, and she told me to shut my mouth and mind my business. I could see her behavior was affecting Dad, but he never said a word. That only made me angrier, so I would be passive-aggressive whenever Kayla came over. One day, Kayla came over after not visiting him for 2 months. Oh, you finally came to visit Dad. Did the party you had to attend get cancelled? Shut up, Hazel. Girls, be nice to each other. But she never comes to visit you. It's okay. She's here now, and that's all that matters. Yeah, Dad's right. Leave me alone. Be glad that I came here to begin with. You must be here for a reason. You only ever come here when you need something. Hazel, that's enough. Your sister hardly does that. Last time she came here, she asked you for $300 so she could go to some party. Just drop it, Hazel. Anyway, how you doing, Dad? Chemotherapy is awful, but other than that, I'm doing okay. Okay, well, I needed to tell you something. Surprise, surprise. Can you just let me speak? What is going on, Kayla? I'm pregnant. What? Since when? I missed my period last month and this month too, so I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. Okay, and do you know the father of the baby? That's the thing. No way, you don't know who the father is, Kayla. You're barely earning anything. How are you going to take care of a child? You think I'm not worried about that? I wish I knew who the father was, but I can't seem to remember. You know, Kayla, I expected so much from you. I never thought that you'd be the kind to be this irresponsible. I never let anyone say a word against you for your lifestyle, but this is way too irresponsible even for you. I know. I don't expect any help from you. I just wanted to let you guys know about this. Good, because I would not help you out anyway. Wait, are you being serious? Of course I am. I'm done bailing you out of your problems. I'm already stressing out about how long I have left to live, and the stress of helping you raise a child is not something that I want to deal with. But I'm your daughter. How can you do this to me when I'm pregnant? You're kidding, right? You barely visited Dad after he got diagnosed with cancer, and you expect him to help you out? I'm sorry. I live a more fulfilling life than you do, but I don't have that kind of time to be here. And using that as a reason to make me and my child suffer through poverty is just plain cruel. That's not the reason. Now's the time for you to get your act together. Stop acting like you're still in college. You're 27, for God's sake. Act like it. Get a better job and work towards making a future for you and your child. Wow. You're the worst father ever. Kayla left, and neither Dad nor I made an effort to stop her. I was shocked at the news of Kayla's pregnancy, and so was my dad. But I was even more shocked that my dad put his foot down with Kayla. After years of letting her get away with everything, 27 years of her nonsense, by the way, he finally had enough. I guess he realized that he'd done more damage by letting her have her way and decided it was time to stop doing that. I was annoyed by how spoiled Kayla was and how she could just so casually tell Dad that he was the worst when he was barely making it through every day. I knew Dad didn't react to that, but I knew that on the inside he was hurting. Neither of us addressed Kayla's visit after that, mostly because only a week after Kayla visited us, Dad's health declined a lot more rapidly than it was doing before. He was rushed to the hospital where they conducted huge amounts of tests on him. When they were done running tests on him and once they stabilized him, the doctor told me that my dad only had 2 weeks to live. I was gutted. I couldn't believe that there was an actual time limit to his life. Until then, I managed to live in the hope that Dad's treatment would work, but clearly it didn't. I sadly delivered the news to Dad, and he seemed to be relieved. He told me that having an idea of when he was going to pass was better than living in fear of not knowing which day was going to be his last. We spent the rest of his days in the hospital. I barely left the hospital, and even when I did, it was only for a quick shower and change of clothes. One day I came back to the hospital after having left Dad to go home and check in on him. Hey, Dad, how you doing? Not so good. Gosh, who'd have thought that learning that you only had 2 weeks to live would feel so depressing? Tell me about it. I don't know what I'm going to do without you. Oh, sweetie, you'll be more than fine, I'm sure of that. You're the last family I have, and I don't know how I'm going to go through life without a family. Hey, you have Kayla at least. Dad, both you and I know that Kayla would rather make a pig fly than be there for me when I need help. Okay, well, just because I'm gone physically doesn't mean that I'll be gone from your heart. Besides, you'll eventually meet many people that you'll learn to consider your family. I can only hope for that. But speaking of families, I need to get my things in order. Do you think that you could ring up my lawyer and ask him to come by this evening? Of course, but, if you don't mind me asking, how are you distributing your things? Well, I was thinking of giving you and Kayla an equal split of everything. I don't think you should do that. Sweetie, I know you and Kayla are like chalk and cheese, but Kayla is still my daughter, and I have to be fair towards... No, that's not what I meant, Dad. I meant that you should give Kayla everything, excluding all the things that have no monetary value, like our photo albums and stuff. Those are the only things I want. What? Why would you want me to do that? I know I gave Kayla a lot of slack the last time she was over, but I also don't want her or my future niece or nephew to be struggling. I'm sure she'd appreciate the help way more than I will. But, sweetie, you've spent the last year by my side and you never got to set foot into the work scene. You might struggle to get a job. I'll figure that out by myself. I have enough saved up right now to get by a few more months. Please just do this one thing for me, Dad. You're an amazing person, Hazel. I don't know what I've done to deserve a daughter that's this kind and big-hearted, but I sure am lucky. Oh, hush, Dad. Now, why don't you get some rest? I'll call your lawyer and have him meet you in the evening. I know I sound like a saint, and you're wondering what happened to all my distaste towards my sister. The thing is, even though I'm not the biggest fan of my sister's life choices, she was still my sister at the end of the day. I didn't want her to be stranded with nowhere to call home or any way to take care of her child. Worse even, I didn't want the child to enter the foster care system. So if I had to give up my share of the inheritance, then so be it. I called the lawyer for Dad and I let them talk all evening. The lawyer left a copy of the will on Dad's table after he left. After my dad fell asleep, I couldn't help but sneak a peek at the will. Dad did listen to me about giving Kayla the entirety of the inheritance, and I was relieved to see that. I know my dad enough to know that he's always very stubborn about getting what he wants only. But then I noticed the fine print at the bottom of the will that stated that the only way for Kayla to get all the inheritance was for her to find the father of her child within 2 months of his passing. I knew it. My dad was stubborn and always had to have his way. I couldn't help but feel so loved when I saw that, though. Even when he was living his last few days, he had my back. When I confronted my dad about his little clause, he told me that he was giving Kayla a fair shot at getting her act together. And he knew that I had a kind heart anyway, so I would split the inheritance with her, even if she didn't find the father of her child. He was just trying to help her get her life together. Dad passed away a few days after that, and I was beyond devastated. I was the one who came to his room and found him cold. I barely remember much of what happened after, but I know that I was one who took care of all the funeral arrangements. I wanted it to be done as soon as possible, so the funeral took place 2 days after Dad's death. At that time, Kayla came to live with me. She barely seemed affected by Dad's death, but I didn't focus too much on it because I figured people grieve in different ways. Dad's funeral was hard to get through, but seeing so many people there made me feel good because I got to see how loved my dad was. After my dad was buried, Kayla went back home and I stayed back to talk to Dad's family and friends. While Kayla was there, she managed to find the copy of the will that I had seen when Dad made the will. She knew that she was the inheritor, and I imagined it made her very happy. Because when I got back home, I found all my things packed and kept in the living room, and I ran up to my room and found it empty. All of my things were gone, and only the bed and the dresser were there. I walked downstairs and saw Kayla standing there. Kayla, why is my room empty? Oh, I decided to get some cleaning done. And you thought that you should clean out my room, literally? Yeah. Oh, I meant to tell you that you need to leave. Excuse me? You heard me. You need to get out. You can't throw me out of my own home. This may be your home, but now this house is mine. Or did you forget that Dad left me this house? It's barely been a week since Dad's funeral, and you're already kicking me out? Do you not think that's cruel to do to me? It may be cruel to you, but I know that I need all the space I can get for when my baby comes. If that means throwing you out, then so be it. Where am I even going to go? I just graduated college and I spent the last year taking care of Dad. I barely have any money. I would love to give you some advice, but I don't care enough about your problems. What's wrong with you? When did you get so inhuman? Gosh, stop being so dramatic. Your life isn't ending. I'm just telling you that you need to move. I'm not going anywhere. I'll sleep on the bare floor if I have to, but I'm not leaving. This house is mine now, and I get to make decisions regarding it. You have to listen to me. I don't have to listen to a single word you say. You're a cruel person. You know how much I've been struggling since Dad died, and you're making things worse for me for your selfish reasons. You think I'm not struggling with Dad's death too? I'm only looking out for my child in the same way that he looked out for me by giving me everything he owned. I know that he only gave you everything to help you kickstart your journey as a single mother. I'm sure he never thought that you'd be capable of throwing me out of my own home, because if that thought even crossed his mind, he would have split the house between the two of us. Sure, but he didn't do that now, did he? It's mine. And if you don't leave right this instant, I'm going to call the police and have you escorted off my property. Please, just at least stay tonight. Absolutely not. You always got your way with Dad, but that's not going to happen with me. Wow. Okay, you're going to have to keep my stuff here for the night. I'll figure things out, and then I'll grab my things. You have until tomorrow to get your things, or I'm throwing them out. How do you expect me to figure things out overnight? Not my problem. Fine. Just so you know, this house won't be yours for long. What are you talking about? Maybe you should read the fine print on Dad's will, and when you need help, best believe that I'm not helping you out at all. I was fuming. How could Kayla be so heartless? What did it take for her to be a human? She was going to have a child, and if she couldn't treat her sister with respect, how was she going to treat her child? I drove around for a long while before I finally calmed down enough to find a place to rest. I called my best friend up and explained my situation to her. She assured me that I could stay at her place for the next 2 months until I got my place back from Kayla. I went over to my best friend's place that night and only went back home the next morning. When I got there, I heard Kayla running down the stairs just as I was picking up the last bag that I needed to load into my car. Before you make a fuss, I just came back to get my things. No, wait. What do you want? I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it when I said that I wanted you to leave. Why the sudden change of heart? I read the fine print like you asked me to, and I had no idea that Dad had done that. Oh, well. How could he expect me to find the father of my child in 2 months? I don't even remember which club I was at. I would love to give you some advice, but I actually don't care about your problem. Are you seriously throwing that in my face right now? Would you rather I throw it in your face when I get you to leave this house in 2 months? Please don't leave. You can stay here if you want. You can even take the master bedroom. I'll give you all the privacy you need, and I'll make all our meals. You already showed me your true colors, Kayla. You tried to make things worse for me when I was already at my lowest. I don't want to live with you. Okay, but you won't actually throw me out if I don't find the father of my child, right? You have 2 months to either find the father or you can leave. How can you throw a single mother and her child out onto the streets that way? How could you throw your broke sister out into the streets like that? You showed no remorse. You know, I was the one who told Dad to give you everything because I thought you'd need it more than me. Clearly, Dad had my back, and I'm grateful for him. You asked Dad to give me everything? You have no idea how much Dad didn't want to do that. You didn't care at all when Dad got diagnosed with cancer. You barely even visited. The one time you stayed for longer than 15 minutes, you told us you were pregnant. You don't deserve this house or any of his money. Please forgive me. Look, I'll even get down on my knees. What are you doing, Kayla? Get off the floor. No, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. What I did was horrible, and I promise that I'll work hard to make sure that I make up for my huge mistake. Please don't throw me out. You have 2 months, Kayla. I know you have enough money saved up to get yourself an apartment. I'm going to go now. I'll see you in 2 months. Honestly, I did feel a little bad for Kayla, but I was in no place to do anything about it. She had been disrespectful over and over again, and I was not okay with that. I did my best to be there for Dad and make sure that Kayla was also taken care of. I did all the work that the two of us should have been doing together, and I still let her reap all the rewards. I saw no reason for her to have her cake and eat it too when she was so ready to let me suffer. There was no empathy behind her eyes when she told me to leave the house, so I saw no reason to show her any empathy either. Over the course of the next 2 months, I landed myself a good job and I lived with my best friend. I waited patiently to see if Kayla would find the father of her child. Kayla would regularly text me and call me to try and get me to change my mind, but I wasn't budging at all. She needed to learn that all her actions had consequences, and yes, I knew that this was harsh, but it needed to happen. Kayla's calls and texts only got more frequent and more desperate the closer we got to the 2 months' end. I stuck my ground and did not let her tears get to me in any way. I made sure that she was not stressing out too much either because I didn't want the child to suffer. I made sure to go over whenever I could and get her food and other necessities. I explained to her very calmly why I was doing what I was doing. Kayla kept apologizing again and again, but I knew that just because she apologized, it didn't mean that she had changed. I mean, I watched her use my dad for months while he was on his deathbed and then apologize when I confronted her, only to go back to asking Dad for money a week later. I was not going to trust her at all. Eventually, the 2 months got over and I asked Kayla to move out. I contacted Dad's lawyer, who was the executor of his will, and provided him with all the proof of Kayla's inability to find her child's father. I was granted all of my dad's assets, including the house. Kayla called me every name under the sun for ruining her life. She cried and begged me again, but I didn't change my mind. But this time I did get a little soft, and I told her that I would help pay for an apartment for her. I found her an apartment and paid for the deposit and the 1 year's rent as well. I told her that she had a year to get her life together and take care of her child. I didn't want anything more to do with her. Kayla called me a selfish, insensitive person and told me that I was a horrible person for throwing her out onto the streets. I reminded her that she now had a roof over her head. She just had to stop relying on others to pay for her things. Kayla moved into her apartment and still never stopped calling me all kinds of names, so I blocked her and moved on with my life. I am a little sad that I'll probably never get to meet my niece, nephew, but I do hope that I helped make their life a little easier by providing for Kayla. As for how I'm doing right now, I'm still struggling with the loss of my dad. But the days are getting a little easier to get through, so that's a good thing. It'll be a while before colors look as bright as they did before for me, but I know that I'm strong enough to get through that. Thank you for listening to my story.